I was born for a number of reasons. I teach something called, when you truly find your massive transformative purpose, the reason you were born, it's something that isn't fleeting. It's not something that's going to be changing next week. It's something that you're going to hold on to for at least a decade. There's going to be a point at which for every year that you're alive, science extends your life for more than a year. And that exponential departure is what's referred to as reaching longevity escape velocity. When I was in medical school, I watched a television show on long-lived sea life, bowhead whales living 200 years, Greenland sharks living 500 years. And I remember thinking, if they can live that long, why can't we? I need another 50 years on this planet at least. And it was that realization that got me to refocus my energy on longevity. And that extra motivation is, in fact, what I consider the longevity mindset. Like, no, I'm going to trade this short-term pleasure for this long-term gain.
Peter Diamandis is a visionary entrepreneur, futurist, author, and investor, best known as the founder of the XPRIZE Foundation, Singularity University, Abundance 360, and many companies and funds all aimed at solving humanity's greatest challenges. In this episode, Peter shares with me how longevity escape velocity may happen as soon as 2030, which is basically when science extends your life faster than you age. He also shares who may win the Healthspan XPRIZE and shares many tips on how you can shift your mindset and, by doing so, live longer as well. The reason I started this podcast was to give you a trusted place to hear from the innovators changing your future. So if you want to be the first to be notified of new episodes, please feel free to hit the subscribe button. Now, let's dive into the episode. I heard you quoting Mark Twain on a other podcast, right? The quote was, there are two important days in your life. The day that you found out you were born,
the
and
day
the day
you were
you found
born,
out why.
Yes, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
why were you born, Peter?
I was born for a number of reasons. I teach something called having a massive transformative purpose. Something that wakes you up in the morning, keeps you going through the day, powers you through the night. It's your sort of like North Star when you're confused or you're stressed and the clouds clear and you see that North Star. Yes, that's what I'm doing. And I've had 3 of these MTPs over my life, and I'm entering into a 4th. And I tell the CEOs and the entrepreneurs I mentor that, when you truly find your massive transformative purpose, the reason you were born, it's something that isn't fleeting. It's not something that's going to be changing next week. It's something that you're going to hold on to for at least a decade. My earliest massive transformative purpose, or MTP, was, and it's still there inside me, to make humanity a multiplanetary species, to help create a commercial space program that will take us off the Earth permanently into the cosmos. And that was, my earliest childhood passions and dreams. It stuck with me into my 20s and 30s. And, I built a rocket company, a satellite company, the International Space University, launched the first XPRIZE for private space flight based on that. And that's still that 9-year-old child inside me that has that desire. From there, my MTP evolved really to, how do I positively impact the lives of 1 billion people? How do I go to scale with the things I care about? And that MTP, which, has also been with me, gave birth to Singularity University, to the expanded mission of the XPRIZE, really solving grand challenges around the world, and has been, a realization that we're living in a time where any entrepreneur can, if they desire, and are lucky and hardworking and all the appropriate accoutrement there, can positively impact the lives of 1 billion people. It's never been like that before. It's always been just the the pharaohs, the kings, and the queens that could impact a large population, even they didn't have the ability to impact 1 billion people. But we do, given exponential tech. Of late, my purpose and passion has been to extend the healthy human lifespan, help us get to longevity escape velocity. How do I bolster that field? How do I build the companies, the XPRIZes, the investments that move that field as fast forward as possible? So those are the reasons I'm on this planet. Yeah.
Could you define for us what longevity escape velocity or longevity mindset, which you sometimes talk about, is all about?
So, sure. So longevity escape velocity is a term first used by Aubrey de Grey and Ray Kurzweil. Ray's been my mentor for a couple of decades now. He's a beautiful man. The chief futurist at Google today, incredible author and entrepreneur. And Aubrey and Ray define it, and it's well defined as, today, for every year that you're alive, science is extending your life for a quarter to a third of a year. In other words, during that year, there's progress or breakthroughs that will enable you to live a longer, healthier life. There's going to be a point at which, for every year that you're alive, science extends your life for more than a year. And that sort of exponential departure is what's referred to as reaching longevity escape velocity. And that's a, fascinating idea. And when you speak to, as I have, a number of the top researchers and thinkers, Ray believes we'll reach longevity escape velocity inside of the next 5-6 years by end of 2030, 31. Speaking to David Sinclair and George Church, they put it in the mid-2030s. Dario, the CEO of Anthropic, was on stage at the Davos event in January, and he said, listen, the rate at which AI is impacting our understanding of biology, that he could imagine that in the next 5 to 10 years, there could be a doubling of the human lifespan. So this is a lot of sort of, impactful optimism out there. A lot of people pointing in that direction. When I speak about a longevity mindset, it's a mindset that one takes on to say, I believe that, in fact, science is going to make these incredible extensions of our, not just our lifespan, our health span, how long we have the aesthetics, the cognition, the mobility, the vitality to love life. And if you believe that that is coming, and that your job is to stay in the healthiest form of your body, cognitively and physically, to intercept those technologies, that's a longevity mindset, that I'm going to do all that I can to stay as healthy as I can to intercept these breakthroughs. It's so easy to be lazy, right? To just, hit the snooze button on the alarm over and over again, or to stay out late and not get to sleep on time, or when you're at the restaurant and that piece of chocolate cake is put in front of you, to eat it all. There has to be some countervailing motivation for getting out of bed and working out, for not eating that extra slice of cake, right? And that extra motivation is, in fact, what I consider the longevity mindset. Like, no, I'm going to trade this short-term, pleasure for this long-term gain.
I've spoken to Eric Verdin and quite a few people on the podcast about this hockey stick curve moment we find ourselves in. And we've had the pandemic, we've had this silver tsunami that's coming in the next few years, and of course, AI and the potential of AGI. Why did you decide that this was the cycle and this was the moment to make longevity and health span central to the XPRIZE?
It's my journey in the longevity field began, really, I'm 63 now, I'll be 64 in May. I had kids when I was 50. about 13, 14 years ago. And I think that really got me focused on the notion that I want to see them grow up, meet their kids, meet their grandkids. This is the most exciting time ever to be alive, as we're getting ready to land humans back on the moon and on Mars, search for life, in the under the ice in Europa. We're seeing large quantitative models help us understand the fundamental fabric of the universe. So it's like, okay, I need another 50 years on this planet at least, and more if I can. And it was that realization that got me to refocus my energy on longevity. And when I focus on a problem, like I did on space, I focused on it by starting companies, starting a university, writing books, creating, conferences around it. I surround a problem in a way that I could fully understand it and bring talent and capital to the party. And so decided to do that in longevity. And that started, 13 years ago or so. Have started a number of companies in the longevity business. Human Longevity first, a company called Fountain Life, where I serve as chairman, another company called Life Force. I have a $600 million venture fund called Bold Longevity Growth. And then started writing books on the subject and surround this problem. And one of the very important things that helped surround the problem in space, and we're bringing to the party here, is the idea of a large XPRIZE. So for those who don't know, XPRIZE is a nonprofit I'm a founder and executive chairman of, that is focused on running global competitions to solve problems. So the very first competition was a $10 million prize for private space flight. I raised $10 million. It came from an amazing woman, Anusha Ansari, was born in Tehran, grew up watching Star Trek like I did, sold one of her companies for $1.3 billion. And her dream was to fly into space. And I pitched her, it was like my 150th pitch, because it was like forever taking to raise the capital. It was like, this is way before SpaceX or Blue Origin, or Virgin. This was before space was a popular idea. But she funded it. We called it the Ansari XPRIZE. And that $10 million prize drove 26 teams from 7 countries to work on building private spaceships to win the prize. It was won by a guy named Burt Rutan, funded by Paul Allen. And Spaceship One, the winning vehicle, is now hanging in the Smithsonian, right next to the Spirit of St. Louis airplane, above the Apollo 11 capsule. Very beautiful. Long story short, on the success of that, I was able to attract folks like Larry Page and Elon Musk and James Cameron onto my board. And we started dreaming bigger of where will we run the large, these next large scale competitions. And we've launched 30 in the last 30 years, about $600 million in total prize purses, driving $10 billion in R&D. And most recently, about a year a bit ago, raised $157 million in total to run a large-scale Healthspan XPRIZE. And this wasn't just about moving the needle on how long you live. It was about moving the needle on how long you're healthy. So I know the numbers in the U.S. In the U.S., average lifespan is like 78, 79. I'm sorry, 78, 79. The average health span is 63. There's like a 16-year gap. And so how do you close that gap? So this is asking teams to deliver therapy that could reverse your cognitive age, your muscular age, and your immune age by a minimum of 10 years, a goal of 20 years. 603 teams entered this competition. This competition is ongoing. We should have a winner by 2030.
So you work slightly differently from normal competitions, right? So, or grant giving, right? So what is the motivator for these 603 companies right now? Apart from that big prize, it's quite a big intrinsic motivator, but how have you seen people come around this problem and kind of double down on this problem, given
On the
you've done
problem
a
of
number of these
longevity
problems? I think just
or
longevity,
the
but
X
also
prices?
previous
Yeah.
prices as well.
But you have to realize that we are genetically bred and our neural nets wired for competition. Um, we've always done our best work when we compete, right? When we're in the Olympics, we're competing. When we're, trying to get our spouse, we're competing. When we're in business, we're competing. And it just causes us to go that extra mile. And as a result of that, the thought was, why not use outright competition to solve the world's biggest problems? And, I got the idea of the X Prize originally from reading Lindbergh's Pulitzer Prize winning book, The Spirit of St. Louis, that spoke about his flight from New York to Paris. And he made that flight not on a whim, but to win a $25,000 prize called the Orteig Prize. And as I read the book and made notes, I realized, oh my God, this $25,000 prize drove about $400,000, 16 times the amount of the purse, in teams cumulatively competing to win this prize. And I was like, that's pretty amazing. And can I use that prize model to go after things I care about solving? And the answer is yes, over and over and over again. And the teams want, when these teams are working on these prizes, they love this. This is their purpose, their passion. They want an excuse. And it gives them, very importantly, it gives the teams a target to shoot for. Instead of like going all over the place and building anything, it's like we define a very clear, meaningful, beneficial finish line, and the teams are able to do that, and it levels a playing field. So a large corporation and a small corporation are on the same playing field. Who can win this prize? And sometimes it isn't the large company. It's the young, scrappy company with a crazy idea.
So by 2030, 10, 15, 20 years of increased health span, right?
I think that's going to be the minimum. I think we're going to see an exponential breakthrough. And again, this longevity mindset, you're thinking, amazing, got that, that's in the bag. Now, during those additional 10, 20 years, what other breakthroughs are going to get me the next 10 or 20 years? And so we're in a non-linear part of the curve. I think we're in the midst of a health span revolution. And that's what I'm shouting from the rooftops.
Mm. And so, as an example, David Sinclair used to do one test every few days, and now because of AI can do trillions of tests in a few days. What is giving you that optimism? Is it the fact that we are in the moment going to just see an abundance of new technologies come from AI, or is it something you're seeing already in the labs?
It's a combination of both. Without question, the number one forcing factor that's driving this is AI and AI-enabled technologies. So each of us is a collection of 40 trillion human cells, right? And every one of those cells is running between 1 billion to 10 billion chemical reactions per second. And there's no way for a human to understand this, but AI can. So, for example, one of my companies called Fountain Life is we built these diagnostic and therapeutic centers. We have 4 of them today in Dallas, New York, Naples, and Orlando, our headquarters. We're adding Los Angeles, Houston, and Miami. And then there's a roadmap of adding, another 20 or so globally. And you come through this center, this Fountain Life Center, and we do a digital upload of you. What does that mean? It means we full body MRI, brain vasculature, looking at for aneurysms, looking for cancers. We do a coronary CT with an AI overlay, looking not for calcified plaque. Calcified plaque is stable. It's soft plaque that can, break off in the middle of the night and kill you. We do a low-dose lung CT. We do a DEXA scan, your full genomics, your microbiome, your metabolomics, your blood chemistries, a retinal scan, a skin scan. It's 200 gigabytes of data about you. And there's no way that a human could ingest that data. But we built out, super impressive AI models that can aggregate all the data, and the data is basically on my phone with an AI that I can speak to and ask it questions. There's even a higher fidelity version of the AI that my medical team has to look at my data and to analyze. Okay, answer 2 questions. Is there anything going on inside my body I need to know about right now? And the second question is, what's likely to happen to me in the future, and how do I prevent it? Right? And so that command of massive data sets, and then being able to look across thousands of Fountain Life members and understand patterns. And okay, like we looked at, what is the leading cause of heart disease? Is it LP little a? Is it triglycerides? Is it LDL? Is it HDL? And the number one thing that correlated with heart disease were none of those things, nothing around cholesterol. It was your hemoglobin A1C. It was your blood sugar levels. So you start getting amazing insights on this. So that's one element of AI, massive data sets, beginning to understand things. The second side is, can we begin to understand the inner workings of a human cell at a level of fidelity where we can simulate that human cell and begin to understand why we age, how to slow it, stop it, perhaps reverse it. And that's what gets me super excited about the future.
It's amazing to think of the 603 companies that are going after this and just thinking, what a mycelium of amazing brains. Do they collaborate in any way? Are you seeing that sort of teaming up or teams coming together? Because there just must be so much knowledge, right, in that group.
We do. One of the things that we see within the XPRIZE competition is very much teams merging and collaborating or acquiring each other. One team may have a fantastic approach for muscle, but not a great approach for cognition. So they'll team up and go after that together. That's always been the case. We facilitate that by every year bringing all the teams together and having team summits where they meet each other, they see their approaches, they ask questions. I remember for the first XPRIZE, XPRIZE for private spaceflight, one of the teams said, the best thing that could happen is that we win. The second best thing that can happen is that someone wins, right? Because they're all in this from a deep emotional passion.
Thanks for tuning in. As we are such a new podcast, every subscribe makes a huge difference. So if you're enjoying, please feel free to hit the subscribe button. Now, let's get back to the episode. A question you sometimes ask people is, how long do you want to live?
Yes.
How long do you want to live, Peter?
Yeah. So I want to reach longevity escape velocity. So, listen, let me take this 2 directions. One thing is, when I was in medical school, I watched a television show on long-lived sea life. Bowhead whales living 200 years, Greenland sharks living 500 years, other life forms, sea turtles and so forth, perhaps longer. And I remember thinking, if they can live that long, why can't we? And I set a ridiculous longevity goal. I did it most for shock factor and conversation of like 700 years. Put that aside because it is ridiculous. If I'm 63, 64, if I can make it, to 100, which I have every confidence I'll blow through that, that means I've got another, 35 years. During that 35 years, the level of progress is going to be so incredibly unintuitive, so incredibly exponential that, lifespan and health span start to become something that is no longer worthy of conversation. Like, how long do you want to live? If we get to the point of being able to, get into nanotechnology and re-engineer cells, we're now on the verge of generating a backup supply of human organs. Let's get you an extra heart, liver, lung, kidney, pancreas. If you ever need a new one, we can just swap it out. We're beginning to understand how the 100 trillion neurons in our brain work and what's going on with mental disease. What is it fundamentally that's causing it? It's been a black box for most of our existence. And it's these level of insights. So when I ask people, how long do you want to live? The approach I take to it is, in your mind, you have a number. You have a number that you got from someplace. Maybe it's how long your grandparents lived, or how long it says in the Bible, or whatever the case might be. And that number is self-limiting. And what if that number were no longer valid? What if you had sufficient motivation, you could blow through that number with ease?
We dropped an episode with Aaron D'Souza today, and there's been a bit of pushback, right? He's the founder of Enhanced Games. And you get the naysayers, or people that are not quite aware of this space, saying the usual questions. What is the biggest pushback you're getting right now? And not keeping to longevity, but what keeps you up at night when you think about the XPRIZE and what you're going to achieve?
Well, let's take it in two parts. So the largest pushback on longevity is, isn't it for the wealthy? Right? And what about overpopulation? And I don't want to live that long, So I'll take those three. The I don't want to live that long one, I say people, well, okay, how old are you? You're 50 or 60. Are you happy that you didn't die at age 30, which was, in fact, the majority of the human lifespan for the last 300,000 years? Humans never evolved to live past age 30. But you're at 50 or 55 or 60. Would you prefer to have died at 30? I don't think so. And it gets them thinking, they're not wanting to live long is either a function of you're out of energy, you're in pain, or you're just bored shitless, right? And I think the getting out of, rejuvenating vitality, energy, and getting rid of pain is going to be the case as a result of these health span therapeutics. I think if you have the vitality and energy of a 30-year-old, and then being bored, that is something which I think it's a mindset game. I think there's so much extraordinary potential that we're about to see this world of abundance, right? Where we meet the needs of every man, woman, and child, and you're able to do and have almost anything that you need or desire. I mean, that's my original work with my first book, Abundance, the Future is Better Than You Think. The question of we're going to overpopulate the world, well, that's just plain wrong, because, the numbers are very clear. The majority of the countries on the planet are very quickly depopulating. The US, most of Europe, China, much of Asia are below the replacement age of 2.1 children per family. And they are, Italy, South Korea, Japan are going to be gone in a number of generations. And what you really want is people to live longer and vital so they can participate in society. So we're likely to, peak at 9.5 billion and then have a very rapid fall off. And as we bring additional abundance to Africa, as AI and robotics and other technologies their birth rate will begin to drop as well. That's been consistent across all countries across the last century. The first question of, is it just for the wealthy? Well, the way I think about this is, yes, in the very beginning when it doesn't work well, the billionaires are the guinea pigs. When it works really well and it's affordable for everybody, or I should say it differently, when it's affordable for everybody, it works extremely well. So, think about it from a mobile phone standpoint. Mobile phones, when they first came out, were a briefcase size. They cost $100,000 and they were only for the Wall Street, bankers, and they would drop a call every other block. Today, when they cost $40, there's 8 billion of them on the planet, and they work extremely well. When people hear about like gene therapies being expensive, because the longevity treatments may in fact be epigenetic reprogramming as a gene therapy. Gene therapies that are developed for orphan diseases, where there are a very small population of individuals with that disease, and we need a very unique gene therapy to solve their disease, those are expensive. Today, they can range from $500,000 to $2 million per person. But the important thing to realize is that 8 billion people have the same disease of aging. And if you develop a therapeutic for aging, it will work for someone in the Bronx, as well as Mozambique, as well as Seoul, Korea. And if we're creating something that has, billions of doses, the price per treatment is in the dollars. The closest example, and this came from Dr. George Church at Harvard Medical School, he said, listen, we've had a gene therapy that was mass produced. It was the mRNA vaccines. Like them or not, these mRNA vaccines were a gene therapy. They were putting nucleic acids into your cells and expressing. And when we produced, 1 billion plus doses of that, the price per dose was like $1. So the probability is, in the very beginning, you've got the Brian Johnsons, you've got me and others who are spending a lot of money and experimenting, trying treatments on ourselves, when they're yet not fully proven. By the time they're working and they're proven, the prices will have dropped precipitously and they'll work well, safely, and be available to everybody. So that's how I address the issue of is it safe and is it affordable?
I'm in the camp of people that would openly say that I believe that immortality will be reached in the next, or the possibility to be immortal will be reached in the next 5-10 years. Eric Verdin disagrees with that. He said to me that if you want to be immortal, you can go to church. But I do foresee some split between Homo Deus and people that, because of spiritual or religious purposes, will want to stay away from all of this. Do you foresee, it might not be a north-south divide, it might not be a developed versus developing, but it might be more of a spiritual or religious split?
Yeah, I stay away from the term immortality because it connotes such religious implications and such an extreme. I do like the term longevity escape velocity. People can still die crossing the street or doing something silly. And in fact, one of the things people to realize is as you're growing older, your number one risk factor is accidents, right? You trip and you fall and you break your hip, and you're in the hospital, you develop a pneumonia and you're goner, right? It's a very tried and true course. My dad passed because secondary to a hip fracture and a pneumonia, but he was in his 80s. But I think there are so many institutions on the planet that are built around the thesis of death. Religious institutions, government institutions, and practices. And this inherent belief that having an end to life makes life more precious today. I don't believe that. I go to sleep every night with gratitude. I wake up every morning with gratitude and a passion and excitement for what the day will bring. And I don't think I would change my life one iota if I knew I was going to live 200 years. I'm still going to approach it with awe and wonder every day because of what I'm learning, right? I spend half my life in longevity, half my life in AI, and it's like, oh my God, what an incredible time to be alive.
I'm going to be honest with you. The longevity mindset that I learned from you has actually shifted my mindset. And it's shifted me from feeling this scarce kind of perspective on life and this finite nature of life to thinking very abundantly about I can do and achieve so much in my lifetime. So what advice would you give to someone who feels like there's limitations? I think addressing not just the US, because in the US there is more of an abundant mindset that I see in Europe for sure.
Well, first off, I wrote this book over here called Longevity Guidebook, How to Slow, Stop, Reverse Aging, and Not Die of Something Stupid. There's an entire chapter on mindset there. There's a chapter on sleep, diet, exercise, therapeutics, diagnostic uploads, and all of this. It's what I do, my routines, and all. I think a very rational, very the book is written in a way that you can consume it very easily, a bit at a time, and begin to change your personal longevity practices. But mindset is so fundamentally important. I teach mindset. My next book is called Mindset Mastery. If I were to ask you, think of the most important leaders on the planet, the most successful leaders on the planet, the people that you respect the most. And I said, okay, well, what made them such successful leaders? What made them so incredible? Was it the money they had? Was it the technology they had, their friends? Or maybe was it the mindset that they had? And most people agree it was their mindset, that their mindset dealt with how they dealt with opportunities or how they dealt with challenges. And if you took away everything from those individuals, Steve Jobs, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, whomever it might be, and you left them their mindset, they would probably regain much of their success. And so if mindset is that important, then the question is, I ask, what mindset do you have? Where did you get the mindset? And more importantly, what mindset do you need for the decade ahead? And so I teach a purpose-driven mindset. We just talked about having a massive transformative purpose. By the way, I built a large language model app called mypurposefinder.ai, which is free, which folks can go and it'll go through a series of questions with you and help you shape your massive transformative purpose in 10 words to 20 words that are very carefully chosen and meaningful to you, that help guide you every day on the decisions that you make. So people can try that. I talk about an abundance mindset. Don't worry about opportunities lost. next year, next month, next week is going to bring you more. There's increasing abundance of opportunities out there on the planet. We don't need to have a scarcity mindset. I talk about an exponential mindset, doubling something 30 times is a billion-fold bigger. A moonshot mindset, going 10 times bigger when the rest of the world is going 10%. And then this longevity mindset of knowing why you want to live an extra 20 or 30 years. What would you do with that time? All right, you need to have a why. A dear friend, Dan Sullivan, says, make your future bigger than your past.
Two indicators of longevity, or the two apparently from again, Eric Verdin, the president and CEO of the Buck Institute.
Who I love. I love Eric.
Yeah.
We have a disconnect in, he's a very well-grounded scientist and leader in the longevity space, clearly focused on not how do we give you an extra 50 years, but how do we take you from, 63 years of health up to 79 years of health so that your health span and your lifespan are aligned.
Exactly. But he indicated two things, and agreeing with your point: social connection, or the quality of your community, and then the second one is purpose and what you do. So it seems that finding purpose is just such an important thing. If you could give one piece of advice on mindset to our listeners, one thing that they can do today, what would you do?
Yeah, so it's a really powerful one. So in the book, I have this chapter on mindsets, and one of my favorites is there was a study done and published in the National Academy of Sciences. It was a rather large study. It was done with 69,000 women and 1,500 guys. One of the only studies with many more women. It was corrected for all geographic, age, socioeconomic input. And in this study, it demonstrated that optimists live 15% longer than pessimists, which is amazing, right? If you're excited about the future, if you're optimistic about the future, it impacts your entire physiology. And so if there was just one thing, it's like change what you read, change what you listen to, stop watching the crisis news network, CNN. I don't have a good acronym for Fox, but stop wasting your time reading a newspaper that's 10-1 negative news to positive news. Some editors is just feeding you constant negative dystopian news. Not that it's not true, it's just not balanced. It's not showing you all the amazing things going on in the world, because the newspaper and the TV news, they have one job: deliver your eyeballs to their advertisers. And we pay 10 times more attention to negative news than positive news. It's manipulation. And so they couldn't pay me enough, right? I very selectively choose the news that I want by who I follow on X, or I have an AI product called daily.ai that finds news in the scientific fields that I care about. And I guarantee you, if something's going on in the world that I have to know about, my mom will tell me, or my family will tell me. But I'm not going to let them shape my mindset, right? Our brains are neural nets. And you train a neural net like a large language model by showing it example after example after example. And if you're training your neural net with every murderer, every crooked politician on the planet, you're just putting yourself into this dystopian negative mindset. And it will cost you 15% of your lifespan.
Peter, because of the nature of this podcast, I always ask this question, which is, I want to go into your crystal ball. In 2030, you've just announced the XPRIZE winner. What does the world look like?
It's so hard, right? I run a program called Abundance 360 and the Abundance Summit. I mentor about 500 CEOs and entrepreneurs throughout the year. We get together for 5 days every March. And I started this 13 years ago. And my goal through this Abundance 360 program is to help people understand what happened in the last year and where things are going the next 2 to 3 years. And it used to be fairly easy to summarize what occurred in the last year and where things are going in the next 2 to 3 years. The rate of exponential growth is so staggering that it's become, extraordinarily difficult, on the verge of almost impossible to predict where things are going to be. This is fundamentally a result of what we're seeing in this, explosion of artificial general intelligence and soon digital superintelligence that will change every aspect of our lives. I believe that by 2030, there will be a number of very well characterized strategies and therapeutics for extending your health span at least a decade, maybe more than that. It'll take some significant amount of time for this to trickle down through the existing medical system. There will be a number of peripheral medical companies and elements that will support those who seek it. We're going to start to see humanoid robots in our homes, in our workplaces, on our streets. We'll have completed the autonomous car revolution that's coming from Cybercab and Waymo and others. Most definitely by 2030, we'll see it being deployed. It's, I take a Waymo here in Santa Monica all the time. It's cheaper, faster, better than an Uber typically. But this transition will occur throughout the rest of the United States. We'll see cryptocurrencies becoming more fundamental and much more accepted across our ecosystem. Drone delivery is likely to sweep the country by 2030. We see Wing, which is an Alphabet company operating in Dallas. We see Zipline, another drone delivery company operating in the U.S. And the systems are working beautifully, so you can order something, have it delivered in minutes instead of, the next day. We'll see a revolution in education. I have two 13-year-old boys. I think about this a lot. And today, 99.99% of schools in the U.S. and probably in Europe basically say, AI you should need to learn the basics. We don't want you using AI in school. Well, guess what? In September of 2025, the Chinese government has made AI mandatory in primary and secondary schools, as well as the Estonian government. I think that bit will flip across all of schools. The realization was like, oh my God, we're doing a massive disservice to our children by not educating them and teaching them this new capability that's going to be fundamental for the rest of their lives, and we're holding them back. So those are some of the changes I see coming.
Last question. Your advice to a mother with a 13-year-old child. The world is changing so fast, right? We don't even know if the skills of AI will be relevant in 6 months, let alone, 5 years. What direction would you push those kids into?
I'll share what I tell my kids, and what I think is most important. Number one, expose your kids to as much as possible. Your number one job as a parent is to help your child discover their purpose and passion in life, right? I feel very lucky, blessed that when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, the Apollo program and Star Trek were going on, and that lit my soul on fire. And that became my purpose. That became my intrinsic motivation for wanting to learn. And that's what I wish for my kids. They're still searching to find what their intrinsic purpose and passion is. The second thing is having your child learn to ask great questions. In the future, it's less important what you know and more important the questions that you ask. In a world where you can know anything, anytime, anywhere, It's being inquisitive. It's, call it prompt engineering if you want, but still, it's the idea of learning how to ask great questions. For me, those are fundamental elements. Yes, I want my kids to learn programming, which will be very different. It's natural language programming. I want them to become builders. I want them to understand that they can leave the world a better place, that they're empowered to solve problems, not just to, worry about them. Those are fundamental mindset shifts that I want my children to have.
And just the final note on XPRIZE, if someone wants to get involved in this cycle, still 5 years, how would they get involved?
So first of all, go to xprize.org. You can find everything there. You can learn about the Healthspan XPRIZE. Become a member of the organization. We reach out to our members to help design prizes of the future. You can still, I think you can still form a team if you want to compete in the Healthspan Prize, or learn about the teams that are going on. And we have teams in like 50 countries around the world. Go volunteer and join a team to compete for this. I think there's no, for me, longevity and AI are the two multi-trillion-dollar markets coming down our path. They're also the two most transformative for society.
Amazing. Peter, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Be well and excited. I hope folks get a chance to learn about my newest book, Longevity Guidebook, about the XPRIZE. I hope you go and check out mypurposefinder.ai and find your massive transformative purpose. I put out 2 blogs a week, one on AI, one on longevity. You can find that at diamandis.com if you're interested. And a pleasure, Julian, to spend time with you.
Thank you for listening to the Beyond Tomorrow podcast. We'll see you next time.